Hello and welcome to another edition of the Sporting Kansas City Show on your home for SKC Soccer, Sports Radio 810 WHB, wherever you download your podcasts, wherever you stream your amazing video content. We appreciate you being here as always, and we got a big show for you today. We're going to recap a big win for Sporting Kansas City, one of the craziest games I think we've ever been a part of, the three of us, and that's saying something because Sporting's played in some crazy games over the years. And something tells me we're going to see more and more of these types of crazy games in this tournament. We're going to recap that. We're going to play some sound, actually, from Peter Vermes and Tim Melia from their Zoom conference from yesterday about that game and other things going on with the team. And we're going to talk with the hero, Graham Zusi, who scored the match winner in that topsy-turvy game on Friday as well. Took a deflection, a weird deflection. It worked out. He gets credit for the goal. And we'll talk with Graham about that and everything else that's going on down in Orlando as well. And then we will preview for you what is another big game on Wednesday morning, 8 o'clock Central Time, when Sporting KC will take on Real Salt Lake in a result or go home fashion. They need a draw or a win, or else their time at the MLS's back tournament would come to an end. So a lot at stake in this game tomorrow morning. We'll preview that for you here in a little bit. But first, guys, let's go back to the game on Friday and a little recap of this action. First things first, Colorado came out of the gates firing. They put Sporting Kansas City under pressure. Yes, it was a really good goal from Kellen Acosta in the 6th minute. But would any of us disagree that Colorado deserved something the way they were playing? I mean, it was only 6 minutes in, but they really did take it to Sporting Kansas City in the first few minutes of that game. Carter, you were down there on the sideline. What did you see in the early moments of that game?
Certainly that. Colorado came out with a really good game plan, and I think it was entirely expecting, and they executed it really well for that first 15 or 20 minutes. And I think you're right. I think they got a deserved goal in the early stages.
And at that point, Sporting did actually mount a couple of challenges in the first half, a couple of shots. One hit the woodwork, if I remember correctly, and I remember the one by Jack Price that he saved off the line. But it still didn't feel like Sporting were necessarily, getting the better of things at any point for any extended stretch to that first half. They go into the locker room, come out. Carter, you talked to Kerry Zavagnin there, and that was great stuff on the radio broadcast. I thought some of the pointers that he gave you in terms of what Sporting Kansas City were going to try to adjust in the second half, and it looked like those adjustments really started to make a difference.
100%. It was awesome talking to him and actually seeing that game plan from Sporting happen in the second half. So what he said was they maybe didn't expect that Price would drop in, form a three, and so that was kind of like a 3 versus 1 on Alan Pulido. They really wanted to shut down his involvement in the game, and they did a pretty good job of that, you'd have to say, in the first half. Neither he nor Kinda really got into the game, and the wingers were a little bit limited as well, because then you had the 3, and then they kind of made a 5 with their guys, their fullbacks, really marking Johnny Russell and Kyrie Shelton pretty well. So they saw that, and they wanted to change up a little bit. One of the things, move the ball side to side a little bit quicker. But the other thing was they said they were going to go up the middle a little bit more in the second half, and we saw that come to fruition. And then the long ball and the run from Kyrie Shelton really changed the entire game, and he looks a different player now, and he's a game changer. And they couldn't handle him on that long ball, and that red card really obviously helped Sporting KC flip the table.
Yeah, those adjustments, and then I'd even say bringing in, the substitution of Gerso Fernandez for Johnny Russell. I think Johnny getting shut down so much early on in that game, and then Gerso's energy just really helped open things up offensively for Sporting Kansas City. But, those adjustments, I think, led to some frustration for Colorado. You look at, both the red cards in that play, specifically on Kyrie Shelton, an obvious red card, and Vermes talked about it in his press conference. Not every player would make that run at that point in the game like Kyrie did, and because he's not just tactically so much better as we're seeing in 2020, but physically so hard to match, it's such a physically tough matchup for so many defenders. I think it just, really frustrated Colorado's defense, and then ultimately led to a really, lucky turn of events for Sporting KC.
So smart
Yes.
from him, right, Nate. Sorry, to shield his body into Wilson. He knew he had the run on him, and if he could just get his body into him, then he was going to be in on goal. It's just a really smart play from Shelton.
And to maintain control as well. I mean, he never at any point in that entire run looked out of control, despite having, the arms around the waist, which was the red card, and that was, what was seen on tape. But yeah, just all around a really great judgment from Kyrie Shelton on that play.
Well, I think we need to talk more about the other stuff that Kyrie Shelton's doing too, because we've seen the power, the grace, and the athleticism of Kyrie Shelton. We saw that in 2018, and the work ethic. And that made him a very important part of that team, a big-time contributor. He was a helpful player. But I think what we're seeing now from Kyrie Shelton is the killer instinct part. The guy that believes he should be on the end of the ball inside the penalty area. The guy that's not afraid to fire that shot inside the near post when the goalkeeper sneaks off his line. And even before that red card happened, he was one of the lone bright spots in the first half of that game, despite what you talked about, Carter, which was the two center backs for the Colorado Rapids were flaring way out wide. Basically, it was like their motto was, we're going to slow down the wings here, and then we're going to leave Jack Price here to work, to beat up on Polito. And I mean, you saw it. Abubakar was out there taking a chunk out of Johnny Russell every time he had the opportunity to. And somehow Kyrie Shelton, still in a game like that, was able to be a factor. And he was already a good player. If you had gotten back to Kyrie Shelton that Sporting had in 2018, I think you have a pretty good player that can help you. The guy that they see right now, though, looks like a player that's got all that physical ability we'd already seen and now added some of the other components. I don't want to overreact to a short period of time, but we've seen that all the way going back to preseason training in Arizona, didn't we, Carter?
Yeah, I think he's increased his technical ability, and then maybe that's one of the reasons why we've seen an increase in confidence. What you just talked about, what a lot of guys are saying about him. I talked to Alan Polito after the game, and he said that the same thing, that he sees a good soccer player who's full of confidence, and obviously when it comes to strikers, that's such a big part of their game. And so it really looks like he's visualizing it right now and making it happen. And that finish was a difficult one against Colorado. It's a great ball from Keane, to heads up ball to put it in an area where he figured someone would be, but still a lot of work to do. And he absolutely smashed it.
Carter, I loved your interview with Kyrie after the game, where he even said he felt like he should have had a few more, which just seems to be a different sort of mindset than Kyrie Shelton in 2018. And not that he didn't want to score goals necessarily, but I just don't think he had as much confidence in that specific role on the field. Whereas now we're seeing someone who is incredibly confident, and not between decisions. I think a lot of times in 2018, there were a few opportunities that were missed because of a bit of indecisiveness that may have overcome him in and around the box. And I think now you're just seeing that confidence to be the one to put the ball in the back of the net, and not maybe opt to lay it off or look for somebody else to put it in.
Well, Kyrie Shelton certainly been one of the bright spots for Sporting Kansas City. Now, the game also, though, had some moments even after the two red cards that are a little concerning. You give up a goal when you're up 2 men and protecting a lead. That's not something any team wants to find themselves in the position of. And we're going to get into, through the course of the show today, maybe some of the reasons for that, and if that's something that Sporting Kansas City needs to worry about going forward. Now, one of the things I've been studying this week, and I'll be honest, I'm going to give a lot of credit to Sam Kovson, who really did the legwork on a lot of this for me, but watching these games, it sure seems to me like we've seen a lot of goals in the last 15 minutes of games, and even more goals in stoppage time. I'm going to run some of that stuff out when we do our pregame show on Fox Sports Kansas City tomorrow. But I will tell you that just in general, from a percentage standpoint, there are a higher percentage of goals being scored in those last 15 minutes plus stoppage time in this competition than what we saw over the average of the last season in the regular season. And it makes a lot of sense for a lot of reasons. I want to play a clip from Peter Vermees from yesterday, because I asked him about that trend and if it's something that he expected coming into this competition.
We expected that late in the games, or at least the last 20 to 30 minutes, that the games were going to become more wide open, and probably a lot of goals would be scored, or at least a lot of chances would be had. I can say this now. I wouldn't have said this before game one, but for us, it was also important for us to stay with a similar group of guys game after game, because we're also trying to build some rhythm and trying to build some consistency, and then finally trying to build some guys that have 90-minute fitness. It's hard to do if you're changing lineup around every game. It's different if you have a bunch of guys that are already really fit. It's just totally different. And you think about the World Cup. The World Cup comes on the heels of most players having played a full season. So it's not like they're trying to get 90 minutes fit. They are fit. This is a different challenge in that regard, because you're not coming off of a season. You're just starting your season. And so for us, the idea is that we had to get a group of guys into some type of rhythm, and then we could start playing around with the lineup, or playing around with substitutions. And so that part is at least starting to come. And obviously what we're looking forward to is what the schedule looks like after the tournament's finished as well, because not to have a big amount of time between the last game you play and then the next game you play, because then you're kind of back to square one again.
All right, guys, so there's Peter Vermees, and I think it's interesting because I asked him the question about so many late goals just overall in MLS is back in the MLS is back tournament, and why that is. But he took it right to the substitution question, which I didn't even really ask him about, but it has been a talking point, because we know coming into this competition, 5 subs are available to each team. And seeing some teams decide to make a lot of rotations and make subs, and other teams not do so much. Peter Vermees has been more on that spectrum of fewer subs, those subs coming later in the game. He brought that up on his own right there. And I thought it was interesting, because he talked about the cohesion of the team and trying to get the team into match fitness, which was something that you haven't really heard much said about in that regard to this point. He's trying to ramp his guys up a little bit. It's interesting. And we've seen it work and not work on both sides. Marc Dos Santos, Carter, I know he's a guy that you're a big fan of. His team, he didn't make any subs in that game against San Jose till late into stoppage time, and they capitulated, gave up a late lead and a marauding run for a goal at the end. But then we saw Greg Vanney make a couple of substitutions with his team up a man, and it disrupted the entire chemistry of the team, and they gave up a 2-goal lead with the man advantage. I don't know what the right answer is, but it's interesting to see what the different managers are trying to do when it comes to the ability to have more subs, but also trying to get their team back into some form of cohesion after 4 months off.
Yeah, you're right. We've seen it on both sides. I thought the Vancouver one was interesting because they conceded on a set piece late as well. And I talked before the tournament with the coaching staff here, and they talked about the fact that it's going to be, if you make a lot of subs, it's very difficult to keep those set piece assignments up to date when you're out on the field. And when the other team's making a lot of subs as well, then you have to, all this stuff goes into it. And so it's an interesting aspect of it. But I always think, because of the fitness aspect, we were going to get some late goals in this tournament. What with it being almost like a preseason with the heat, but then also the fact that it's tournament style and these guys want to get these late goals. And if they're down, they might push it a little bit more than they maybe would in just a regular season. So it's been really, really fascinating.
Well, and just to build on that, something else that Vermees has talked about, even going back to last season, is the mental and physical buildup that a team develops throughout an entire season to go into these competitions and be mentally and physically fit. U.S. Open Cup doesn't come till a few months into the season. Obviously, the playoffs and the MLS Cup at the end of the season that you're building towards that entire time. So whether that's fitness, whether that's a mentality, those things, I think that's the other reason why we're seeing a lot of these late game goals, is that you're in this tournament style you're playing in this tournament style format, and a lot of those, maybe polished responses in, a late game scenario aren't necessarily there. And I think Twellman had brought that up on the first broadcast with the Minnesota United game. Those stoppage time goals, maybe Sporting Kansas City just hadn't reached that physical and mental level of fitness to be as sharp in those final situations, despite being down a man as well. But I think that is what's made for a really interesting tournament is, all of the factors. It's the first game's back after 4 months off. It's, a really competitive tournament. There's a lot on the line. We're seeing a lot of, I think more red cards, late game goals, but it's made for an exciting product.
Well, they got the 3 points, and certainly in a complete juxtaposition from the first game where they played well, got the red card, lost. This time they didn't get out of the gates very well, but got the red card on the other side of the equation and were able to win the game. And obviously the end of the day is how many points you get. So that's what matters. But you mentioned the mental aspect of things, Aly, and that is something that is very real at all times in the world of sports, but maybe even accentuated in something as unique as what's going on in Orlando. I thought it was interesting. After the game, Peter Vermes was asked about the slow start against Colorado, and he said, look, the team's been through a lot in the past week. We lost a heartbreaking game. It's hard to get back up from a game like that. We had someone test positive on the team, and that's something Peter brought up and said that it created a lot of angst, and players were worried. And I think we could say that about all of the players going down into the bubble. Let's be honest, it makes sense for there to be some anxiety to go into a situation like this that you've never been in before, amidst a global pandemic, in a state where things are starting to get a little shaky. You can understand the players and anybody that's going down there feeling some anxiety over those situations. Now, hopefully, what we've seen, we just got another update from MLS, which is, I think, the third one in a row now, where they've gone through the comprehensive testing of the entire bubble and had 0 positive tests. I will knock on wood every time that happens because we know things can change, but that's got to make the guys feel a little bit better right there. And so I asked Tim Melia about that at the news conference yesterday. What were things like, this emotional roller coaster that the team went through in the last 2 weeks? And what are they like now, coming off a win and having this string of positive tests? No new players on the team testing positive for Sporting Kansas City. And here's what Tim had to say about that. So, Carter, I'll start with you. You're living it. You're down there with the guys. Let's look at that positive side of things. Being able to get back out with the fellas. We saw the videos from Daniel Shalhoub getting to have play a game of volleyball in the pool. Those might seem like little things to people outside of the bubble, but I've got to think for the players, that makes a huge difference just on the overall atmosphere of having some sense of maybe normalcy, some sense of security, and just having some levity with the guys as you're going through this situation.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, from my perspective, obviously I'm not playing the games, but definitely was getting a little cabin fever there, just kind of being stuck in our rooms for that week after the positive test. You know, we talked about my beach view. I'm watching all the other teams out there, like laughing and high-fiving and everything, and I'm in here like the kid in detention at recess. And I can imagine that gets on people's minds. And I think you're right when you first said it. It's got to be on pretty much everyone's minds here. And it was kind of funny in that week after the positive test, going around the hotel with SKC gear on, because people looked at you like you were, not to make light of it, but like it was like you felt like being a leper, really. I mean, like it was a wide berth in the halls if anyone came near you. A really funny one was, I was on the elevator going down, opens up before the lobby, and some guys from another team, some staff members started to walk in without looking up and seeing who's in there. And the first guy kind of looks up, sees it's me, literally tries to like stop himself from going into the elevator, but his momentum has already carried him. So he's like waving his arms like on the edge of, on a cliff. And the other guys just kind of pushed him in there. And so I wonder if Minnesota players had that in their minds when they were playing Sporting in that game. It's got to be in the back of all these guys' minds. So I agree, having that weight lifted. We've been tested every single day since then. So I think we're on day 13 now of all negative tests all around. And seeing the guys playing the pool volleyball, going to dinner a couple times here at the restaurants at the resort, it's, I think, lifted the spirits of the guys for sure.
Hearing Vermees's comments on all of that after the game, and then hearing Melia speak about it this week as well, it brought me back to a conversation and a debate that's been happening pretty much all since the pandemic started, and that is, should there be an asterisk next to the winner of Major League Baseball shortened season, Major League Soccer shortened season? Should we put an asterisk because it's shortened? Does it count? Does it carry as much weight? And if anything, what Vermees and Melia have just talked about, to me, almost emphasizes how, yeah, there's an asterisk, but it's because these guys are putting themselves in a situation that is so unique and so challenging, both mentally and physically. There's an asterisk because you're never going to see really anything like this ever again. And it's not an easy feat by any means. So if anything, I give them a lot of credit for the way that, to experience all of those challenges down in the bubble and still be 1-1, one loss and one win going into their third game is really impressive, just given all of those mountains that they had to face going into that first game, especially.
I think Jurgen Klopp said it. He doesn't feel it's an asterisk. He feels it's a gold star.
Yeah.
I mean, all the teams are going through the same exact situation, and it is like you just said. It's once in a lifetime, really tough circumstances. And for me personally, I'm going to give a ton of credit to whoever wins this tournament, and I'm going to give a ton of credit to, if seasons continue in whichever sport, to whichever teams come out on top for going through this adversity. I think it's going to be a great achievement.
Leave it to Carter to bring up Jurgen Klopp, by the way, on the show. But you know what? Well done. And I love Jurgen Klopp, and it's a great quote. It's right. It's a gold star, not an asterisk. And I saw what LeBron James had to say yesterday about this. He said, look, every season brings with it a set of unique challenges. No season is the same, whether it's injuries, whether it's something that's going on off the court. Every season has its challenges. This just happens to be a set of challenges we've never seen before. And it's going to be about which teams can adjust, which teams can cope with some of the issues we've talked about. Sporting Kansas City's had their share right now. And if they cope with those and can get a result on Wednesday and move through, they should feel nothing but an enormous sense of pride in that accomplishment, and then try to go win a trophy. To that end, we're going to talk with one of the guys that helped them get that very important result against the Colorado Rapids. Graham Zusi scored the match winner. He's going to join us next on the Sporting Kansas City Show. The Sporting Kansas City Show continues on your home for SKC Soccer, Sports Radio 810 WHB, wherever you get your podcasts, wherever you stream your content on video. We appreciate you watching. We appreciate you listening. And we appreciate our next guest because he scored the game winner on Friday night. Graham Zusi, the Orlando native. That was quite the discussion, Graham. We were wondering, was that going to be an own goal? Was that going to be a goal? But you get it, man. Take credit for it. You scored the game winner. How's it feel?
Well, it feels good to get the 3 points. Like you said, it's a bit debatable on whether I should have been credited with that one, but look, I'll take it. And I'll certainly take the 3 points, put us in a decent position in our group, and not to mention it gets us 3 points in the standings in regular season as well. So that was a good win for us.
So Graham, what did you see on that exact play? If you're kind of iffy on whether or not it should have been a goal, shouldn't have been a goal, what were you going for?
Well, no, I was certainly shooting.
Okay.
Definitely. There was we had a set piece corner kick, and I usually kind of hang out in the top of the box and try to clean up any clearances or scrums in the box. And that's exactly what it was. It was a bit of a scrum. We had a couple chances at it, and then it popped out. And all I was trying to do was to put a shot on frame. And with that many bodies in the box, sometimes you get lucky and you get a deflection, and that's what happened.
I like how we jumped right into the soccer here. Usually we have a little bit of flip-flopping around. So
we already got that out of the way, Carter.
I want to ask about the in-game adjustments that you guys made. It looked like after the first half water break, you guys kind of got into the game a little bit more, and then certainly after halftime, you guys got on the ball a lot more. What type of adjustments do you guys talk about?
Well, credit to Colorado in that game. They had a game plan that they executed pretty well, and they were putting us on the back foot pretty well. So, we took that first water break just to move some people around, just a little bit. It wasn't anything major, but it was obvious what they were trying to do. That big switch point of attack, and then rotate back in towards the middle. So, just being a little bit closer to their outside wingers when they got the ball, I think helped us a bit. And then when we had the ball, just our movement and we saw that they were pushing their outside backs and their wingers to put a lot of pressure on our outside guys as well. So really not allowing them to do that, and playing a little bit more interior kind of helped us quite a bit in terms of getting in behind them and getting some better chances.
So we're talking with Graham Zusi, and yesterday during the press conference or Zoom call that Sporting did, Tim Melia talked a little bit about obviously nobody wants to give up a goal when you're up 2 guys and you're protecting a lead at that point in time, and they had a couple of other kind of half chances at that point as well. And he said, look, this is tournament format. Teams that are down are going to be driving for goals no matter what the situation is. They're going to be putting you under pressure. They're going to be risking things. And so that was kind of one of his theories on why we're seeing a lot of this type of craziness at the end of games down in Orlando. And also we hear a lot about the fitness aspect of things. You guys haven't had games in 4 months and you're playing in pretty hot, brutal conditions. Is that how you see it? Are those the 2 main components to what's going on late in these games, or maybe what's your take on that whole situation?
I'd say that's pretty accurate. I think it's definitely a combination of the two. It's people trying to salvage points at the end of games, so they're throwing people forward, and then also it's the fitness aspect of it is real. It is extremely hot, extremely humid. And that wears on your body, and you see it at the end of games, tired legs and maybe people not getting back and focused defensively towards the end of games, and I think that's why you're seeing so many goals late in this tournament, not just in our games but across the board. So definitely a combination of those two.
Graham, I want to go back to something that Carter brought up with, the adjustments that you all made following the water break. And with those built-in water breaks, Vermees was asked, is this something that you'd like to see continued on after this tournament? And he was like, I don't necessarily think so because of some of the advantages that might come with having those built-in timeouts. How have you, I guess, felt about having those water breaks, not just from actually getting to hydrate, but also to kind of recalibrate as a group and maybe come back onto the field with adjustments or, different changes?
Right. We do have the water break instituted into our league beforehand, that when it comes to like the crazy heat and whatnot.
Right.
So I don't mind that, but I don't think it is necessary for every single game. I think it can be used as a bit of an advantage for a team that may be under a lot of pressure at the time. We typically pride ourselves as being an extremely fit team. And I think that if we're, in control of a game and really pushing, we don't want the other team to have a break. We want to continue to kind of drive them into the ground and take advantage of that fitness. So I think I'd agree with Peter when he says that, I don't think it's necessary, or I wouldn't want to have them instituted in every single game. But in those crazy hot, humid days, I certainly understand it.
Zeus, I'm glad we have you on finally because you, as Nate alluded to, are the Orlando native in the squad. How's it feel being back home? Although I guess it's not really a homecoming. We're here in the bubble.
Yeah, it's funny. I was talking with someone and they were asking me where I was from, and I answered, oh, just outside of Orlando, and then I realized that we were in Orlando when I answered that question. And yeah, like you said, it doesn't really feel much like a homecoming because we are pretty much quarantined in the hotel. Yeah, certainly it brings back some memories, and I'm having a little bit of nostalgia playing in those at those Disney fields, and even around this hotel grounds. I've been around here a few times down the boardwalk and some of these hotel pools as well.
Is it always like this where it rains like every single day, or is that just a summer thing?
It certainly amps up in the summer. You get those crazy thunderstorms that roll in super quick, and you get the downpour for about 30 minutes to an hour, and then it's back to being sunny, humid, and hot.
Impossible to get a golf round in.
Nearly, yeah.
Carter is going to like demand a voucher when he leaves this bubble to come back and finally get that golf round in.
Hey,
I was playing
Carter,
well.
I agree. We didn't get to finish our round, man. We need to get back out there.
You guys were behind us, and I saw you stick a couple close to the pin there. How were you doing that day?
I'd say my forte was my approach shots that day. I was okay off the tee, but I was a bit of a pin seeker when it comes to my forte that day.
Are you the best golfer on the team?
Me? No, not even close.
Everybody says everybody throws you and Bees out there as two of the top guys. I feel like when we've been asking them about it.
I'd say I'd actually say Graham Smith is probably the best golfer. Bees is up there as well. Yeah, I guess I can't count I'm not in the top 2, but I'd say maybe top 5.
It's a good place to be.
Yeah.
So, besides golf, what have been some of the other activities that have been really fun, and what's maybe like a really funny moment that's happened during group get-togethers?
So, like you probably know, we are pretty much confined to the hotel grounds, but they've done a decent job at setting up some things that we can do around. There are some ping pong games, guys who like to play I'm going to say Nintendo and really date myself right now, but I don't know what else they're called. I call everything Nintendo. Video games, I'll say that, yeah. So there's some video games that the guys can play. A few really nice pools. We were playing pool volleyball the other day, and I guess to answer your funny question, we were having a really nice rally going back and forth, and it ended with Daniel just getting spiked in his face. I think he actually just put a video out yesterday of that happening. But it was just a fun day to kind of take our minds off of being locked away in this hotel for a month or so. But yeah, there are some things around the hotel that can let us pass the time pretty well.
Okay, I'm just gonna be honest with you here, Graham, and this could get me in trouble.
Oh boy!
But when I talk to Carter, and I talk to you guys, and I see the videos that Daniel's posting, as a married man with 3 children at home, including a baby who's not exactly sleeping on a consistent basis right now, I actually look longingly at what you guys are doing. And I'm sure that if you ended up making it like a 5-week thing, that it makes it, that puts it in a different category. And I know that I would miss my wife and kids a whole lot, but I gotta be honest with you. There's times I'm like, you know what? A month at a resort in Florida with a bunch of my buddies playing video games and playing soccer doesn't sound so bad. and again, I realize that's not the whole picture.
The grass is always greener.
Right?
I'll just stick to that. I'm going to leave it at that.
And I 100%.
Sleeping in my bed at home sounds pretty nice as well.
Yeah, you don't have a 9-month-old screaming at right next to your bed though while that's happening. I'm just saying.
That is fair.
But, no, hey, look, and I get it. Hey, this is a challenge, and to be real for a second on that, Peter brought up something after your guys' game the other night when he was asked. Actually, I think the question started about the slow start to the game, how Colorado jumped out, and Peter said, "Look, the guys have been through a lot in the past week. We had a positive test on the team, which forced the guys to have to hang out in their rooms. They couldn't even hang out with each other for the past week, and that's a huge component to lightening the mood and making things better in that regard. We lost a heartbreaking game in the first game in difficult fashion. It's been a tough week, and maybe that takes its toll when you go out on the field. The good news is you guys responded from that, and now you've got the win. And so I guess if you could maybe talk about what that roller coaster has been like, and also maybe on the positive side, now you're coming off of a win and you are getting to do a few more of those things. How different is it now maybe than it was just a week ago?
Yeah, you're so right about that. That first week was a bit rough, and not gonna lie, it was a bit stressful as well. I think when we did get that positive test, we almost expected it to trickle down and get worse, and the news to come that a few more guys had it. So whether we'd like to admit it or not, that was in the back of our head. And like you said before, when that positive test came, we were very much quarantined into our own rooms. Even meals were relegated to being in our rooms as well. So we didn't have that constant camaraderie of being in the group together and being able to go down to the pool and have fun. So I think you can attribute the slow start to the tournament at least a little bit to that. But I will say that the past week has been a lot lighter in terms of mood. Luckily that was the only positive test that we had, and we've been clear since then. I think the trainings have been sharper, lighter, more focused, and we were able to get that win on gosh, I don't even know what day of the week it is right now.
Friday.
There you go. And I think our mood going into this game is very good. I'm excited about this game. I think it'll be our best performance of the tournament so far, and it'll kind of boost us into the next round.
Graham, what gives you that confidence, seeing as how the team has performed in the first 2 games? And Peter even mentioned that he felt it would take about 3 games in to really see that rhythm start to form within teams. But what gives you that confidence, and what are you seeing from the team that makes you feel like this is going to be the best performance yet?
Well, it's not like we were bad in these games. I mean, there were some dull moments, I'd say, but there were some things that we were actually really good at. So I think it's building from those positives, and then also getting back to who we are as a team, and those things take time. I think we got some of the rust out of our system in the first 2 games, and what gives me the confidence is what I see in training leading up to this final game. And it has been a whole heck of a lot sharper. It's been the energy has been there, and just those 2 things alone, I think, give the group confidence to go into this game and get a positive result.
You mentioned the win against Colorado is a win in the Western Conference as well. And if you go 30 years back when you guys won the first 2 games of the season, it seems like it means you're 3-1 now, and scoring a boatload of goals. And I kind of want to ask you about a couple of the new guys, because seems like you're a connectazoid for two of them. You're playing next to Roberto Punchetz. So what's he been like? And then the other one is Kyrie, who's, you know, a returner, but he looks improved since he's come back. What have you seen from those two guys that you play a lot with along that right side?
Yeah, you know, I was extremely pleased with the way Robbie came in. It was such a seamless transition for me. You know, it felt natural. You know, his communications very, very good, even for being a foreign player. And he's just a kind of a calming presence. He's good on the ball, but he's also a physical guy who doesn't mind getting into tackles, and he just reads the game very well. And then Kyrie came back with just this whole new level of confidence that you know, you saw. I think in the first stint that he was here, you saw in bits and pieces, but now it's just a constant high level of play that we're getting from him, and yeah, he's been outstanding and just a handful for the other team. His work rate's exceptional, and he's scoring goals, which is ultimately the most important thing for us. So yeah, he's been great. I only see his level maintaining going forward, and yeah, just thrilled with the way those two guys have been.
Hey, Graham, before we let you go, we have to ask the obligatory question about the early kickoff. When was the last time you played a game at 9 o'clock in the morning? And I know you guys have been training specifically at that time of day to try to get ready for it, but what are your thoughts on playing that early in this one?
Gosh, I was probably 12 last time I played at 9 a.m. But no, I think our trainings have been at 8 a.m. for the past 2 weeks, so this shouldn't be a shock to the system at all. In terms of weather, it'll be hotter for sure, but you've been seeing these games go on for the past couple weeks, and you get 4 water breaks plus halftime. So I think knowing that going into the game should allow us to really push. You can really break the game down into 15-minute stints if you want. Push for 15 minutes and then you get a break. Push for another 15, you get a break, halftime, and then same thing with the second half. So yeah, it's gonna be a brutally hot, humid morning, but knowing that we get those little breaks should in the back of your head let you know that you won't die.
Graham, I do have one last question, because you brought up growing up in that area and having memories of playing in that same complex. What memory stands out to you as a young soccer player growing up and playing down where you are now playing as a professional soccer player?
Aly, that was 25 years ago. My memory's not that good. I probably wouldn't be able to give you one specific memory, but I do remember the teams that I was on. We had so much fun. I mean, we were kind of we were a bit of a jokesters even on the field. We would do things like call timeouts in the middle of the game and and make the other team look at the ref, and while they did that, we would be going down the field and trying to score. And we were some jokesters on the field, and on the field and off the field, we had fun together, and we were good, and we won as well. So that kind of made it all right.
All right, I've been asking everyone, who's your favorite Disney character? / favorite movie. We'll slide that in.
I was always a fan of Donald Duck, actually. My dad always did this really, really good Donald Duck impersonation, and yeah, that's I guess that's what sticks out in my memory. And then favorite Disney movie? Gosh, that's always tough. I mean, Lion King's it has to be up there for everyone, I feel. In terms of like a little bit newer, is Emperor's New Groove, is that a Disney movie or is that Pixar?
Ooh,
I always get them mixed up. Yeah, I wish I could
great
tell.
movie though.
Great
Doesn't
movie.
matter.
Great shout.
That's a good one for me.
It was a Disney. I just looked it up. So.
Was it? Nice.
Nicely done.
Yeah, I'll go with those two. Old school.
I think you go at Aladdin because of the shirt off thing.
Oh gosh, here we go.
Aladdin, Tarzan. I don't know.
Maybe should I just pick it off right now?
Yeah, please do. Hey, we need ratings. We need ratings. That's the number one. Whatever it takes. Hey, and for the record, I love my wife and kids. I would miss them terribly.
I'm giving you a hard time. Right?
I got to put that out there because my son listens to the podcast. I love you, son. I wouldn't want to be away for 5 weeks. I was just kidding. And in all seriousness, I know that, hey, this is it's a challenge being away from home for everybody for this long. And we're glad you guys are playing soccer though, because it's a lot of fun for us to watch back here. So hang in there, guys. And Graham, thank you so much for the time and good luck on Wednesday morning.
Thanks a lot, Nate. And I agree, man. It's, we're certainly grateful to be doing the thing that we love to do, and can't wait to be back there in front of our fans as well.
Yeah.
Go call some timeouts Wednesday morning.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. There's Graham Zusi. We're going to take a break. We'll be back to wrap things up on this edition of the Sporting Kansas City Show right after this. All right, we're back to wrap things up on this edition of the Sporting Kansas City Show. Great stuff from Graham Zusi. No surprise there. Always a little disappointing he had his shirt on for the interview. For me, I'm just speaking for myself there, but I guess, he's got to leave something to the imagination every once in a while. But guys, now we focus forward to this Real Salt Lake game. What a game. Rivalry game. Result is needed for Sporting Kansas City to get through. And we're playing breakfast soccer, guys. 8 o'clock